Good afternoon. Welcome to today's CPWR and NABTU Summer Heat webinar. I am Chris Cain, CPWR's Executive Director, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. NABTU's affiliates came together with support from CPWR as their safety and health nonprofit to develop and promote resources as part of a heat campaign. A new web page, which our host Jess Bunting will drop in the chat, provides more information on the efforts from the NABTU campaign called NABTU Keeps Cool effort, and what resources are on that website. The webinar is also being hosted as part of that campaign, and I am looking forward to hearing from our panelists on what contractors and workers can both do to prevent heat-related illnesses on construction sites. One other thing I wanted to mention is that our newsletter next month, which will be released next Wednesday, focuses on heat as well as some new information about heat exposure in the construction industry. So while I assume most of you are signed up for our newsletter, we'll drop a link to that in the chat as well if you'd like to sign up. I would like to go ahead and introduce our panelists. Today we are joined by four great people, and we have an extra panelist for you as well. Shannon Jones is the Tri-Fund Coordinator with the Laborers Health and Safety Fund of North America. Ken Seal is the Safety and Health Director at the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. Shane Eckerman is the Executive Director of Safety with CSI Electrical Contractors. And Aaron Knight is the President of NMC Companies. But before we hear from the panel, I'd like to give CPWR's Director of Health Research, Gavin West, the floor for a few minutes to talk about his current heat-related research. And Gavin?
Thanks so much, Chris. And thank you everyone for joining us today. I see we've got a great crowd, and we have a really great lineup of speakers, so I'll keep my remarks very brief so we can get into the meat of the webinar here. But I wanted to take this opportunity to invite all of you who've shown interest and taken time to join us today to really be a part of the solution of the problem that we're going to be talking about today with heat stress and heat illnesses and injuries by participating in CPWR's Heat Safety Research Initiative. So I lead one of our NIOSH funded projects that is focused on advancing heat safety in the construction industry. And as part of that research, we are analyzing existing data sources, looking at different government data sources, and working closely with our other departments, our data center and our research and practice department and communications to better understand the risks, very specifically within different subsectors of the industry and different trades, and using that to develop resources and tools that really can be used by contractors. But the other piece of it is that we want to collect new data as well. And so we have been getting out on the job sites. We're speaking with management, talking to workers on the site, observing, firsthand how heat safety plans are being put into practice, where there are really success stories and things that are worth sharing more broadly with the industry, and where some of the challenges are and how we can overcome some of those challenges. So I believe Jess is going to share some of this through the chat. There's also a QR code and a URL on the slide that if you're interested in hosting us on one of your job sites, I please encourage you to get in touch and really be part of this solution and help us understand and address this important issue. And we're also going to be doing in this next coming contract year, getting surveys out for different groups. So that's something that to keep an eye out for if you see those, to help us spread the word and help us get survey responses to understand this issue. So with that, I will turn it over to our wonderful panelists here. Thank you.
Thanks, Gavin. And, just flagging that the project that Gavin's working on is one of our NIOSH funded projects. So wanted to remind people that CPWR does have a large cooperative agreement with NIOSH, and we believe we're going to be funded for the next year with current fiscal year dollars. However, we haven't received our funding yet. And so I just wanted to acknowledge how important NIOSH is to us and to the construction industry and safety and health. And with that, I wanted to turn it over to Shannon Jones to get us started. Shannon?
Hello, everyone. How you doing? My name is Shannon Jones. I'm a tri-fund coordinator with the Health and Safety Fund of North America. I come with lots of experience out in the field dealing with heat stress. As a construction worker, I have actually been out there and, dealt with the heat. I was in the construction field during the 90s, and, we didn't have water coolers. We didn't have any of that stuff. So I've dealt with some of the things that has actually held some of the workers back. But some of the challenges that my members face, on the job site is heat illness, dehydration, respiratory problems, skin problems due to exposure, increased risk of accidents and injuries, just doing construction when it's extremely hot, eye problems from the UV exposure, and drowsiness. I've been out on job sites where, there's they pouring asphalt, and it's extremely hot. 350 degrees. The asphalt's coming off the truck, and it's 100 degrees outside. So our workers are out there dealing with that, and they're getting burns. So that's some of my experience.
Great, thank you very much, Shannon. And next, I'll turn it over to Ken.
Thank you, Chris. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about my background and that led me to understand what I needed to do to protect the workforce in the field. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, which it's right now it's about 10 o'clock and it's 93 degrees. So it's going to be a hot day today in Las Vegas, Nevada. I do cover the US and Canada, so I'm aware of the other conditions within the other states also. But before I came to Las Vegas and did my few last field jobs, before I went into the office for the IUPAT, I did a job in Fairbanks, Alaska, where it gets down to -30. I was on the Fort Wainwright Army base there, and I had to understand how to protect people in that kind of weather. And then I got an assignment to go to Las Vegas, Nevada. And when I arrived in Las Vegas, Nevada, it was 115 degrees. And my first thought was, I'm going to have a crew of 80 folks on the job that I was going to do. How do I protect 80 people from getting sick? Because if you ran a lot of work, you understand that the company that you're working for, it's about production. And everything that you do on the job site is based on numbers. So if you're painting a girder of a bridge or, the concrete approach or anything like that, or even condo complexes from the baseboard to the doors, everything's based on a job code and how long that takes you. So I understood that, one, I had to protect my crew first, because I understood the fact that if I protect my crew and I kept them healthy, I can meet my quotas that my company wanted me to meet. So when I got here, I had to do a lot of research on heat and the effects of heat. I took a lot of heat training to understand the effects. And what I came out of that is one, I needed to also train my crew. My crew had to go through this training that I went through because it explained it better than I could explain it. Because there was a lot of really good research that was done that was being shared. The other thing I knew, not just from this particular job in Las Vegas that I was going to do, but my 25 years that I spent in the field running work, I understood that I could not run a job without a plan. Especially when I've ran crews with 100+ on the job sites, and you can't run that many people without a plan. So to have that plan, I really had to understand what this heat was going to do to the crew at the job site. So I went to the job site, I walked the job site, I stood there and really thought about what stuff could happen to my crew. What do they need to be trained on? What kind of plan do I need to have? One of my things is I met with the general contractor on a pre-job and I explained to them about the weather and that we were going to be doing some of the work on the outside and I would like to start on an earlier shift. So we had the shift change from the time that they had it originally planned to an earlier shift. So I was able to do that for one, which allowed me to have the sun chase us. So we were actually staying in the shade while the sun was actually behind us. And that's the sun chasing us. That was one thing that I did within my plan. The other thing I did, because they were two 20-story condo complexes here in Vegas, is that I did not need somebody to go from the 20th floor to the first floor to look for water. And I didn't want them to go from the 20th floor to the first floor to look for water and then that water be contaminated with somebody putting pop cans or whatever in the water or washing their hands or whatever they are with the water jugs. So I bought Rubbermaid carts, 5-gallon jug. I bought them, a cart so they could put in the area that they were going to be in. So, and I told them if you're feeling bad or you're getting dehydrated, take a break. But they didn't have to go look for anything. It was right there for them, and it didn't cost me that much. In fact, my production rates actually stayed up because again, I said at the beginning, everything's based on a number. So I know if it's taken too long to do one thing or the other. And then knowing that if something's taken longer than the other, then I can base my particular plan on that. So on the conclusion of what I'm saying here, it's very important for you to understand the climate that you're in. Again, I cover the US and Canada. So if I went from Las Vegas, Nevada, where it's a dry heat at 115, or I go to New Orleans, Louisiana at 90 degrees with humidity, I have to understand how do I plan around that humidity because the humidity makes it different. So I have to learn how to plan. So training is very, very important, proper training, not just something they take online and or somebody else takes it for them. We're talking about quality training so a person understands the effect that the heat could have on them. And then also for the leadership that's out in the field that is responsible for protecting the workforce. Because again, a person or a worker signs on with a company, that's great. They might be working for that company name, but they're actually working for me in the field. I'm the one they're working for in the field. I have to protect that crew. So I need to understand what kind of plan I need in place to protect the workforce. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Ken. Next up, we've got Shane. And Shane, you are going to share your slides, I believe.
Yes. Good morning and good afternoon. If you're a little farther east, I'm in California. And so I wanted to go ahead and share my screen. I did put together a little presentation on how we deal with heat illness. It might be a little heavy from a safety professional standpoint, but I want to make sure, I know there's smaller companies probably on this webinar that maybe don't have a safety program, maybe don't have safety professionals or a group of them working for them. And I want to make sure that you guys understand the approach that we take from a larger construction company. I work for an electrical contractor, CSI, and we have a lot of resources, fortunately, but we're dealing with the same challenges, right, with heat illness and protecting our employees. So let me share my screen here. All right, can everyone see that?
No.
Uh-oh. Well, let me try again. It's got the green border. Are we seeing it?
No, sir.
Did you hit the blue share button after you selected what you wanted to share? Oh, here we go.
Okay, sorry. I'm used to Microsoft. We don't do Zoom as much. All right, so everyone can see this, hopefully.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. How do we protect our employees in the field? That's what we're talking about today. Just a quick introduction. Again, my name is Shane Eckerman. I'm the safety guy at CSI. We have many safety folks that work for me. I've been working with CSI since 2014. Before that, I grew up in the building trades. I pounded nails for a lot of years and built custom homes and was in the residential construction. So I have been out in the field and worked with these challenges that we're going to talk about. I just want to give a quick thanks also. Michael Costigan, IBW Local 11. He's the business rep and safety officer there. He got me started on this track here, which got me to be able to present here and hopefully help some folks out. Tarn Goling, international rep for IBEW, safety and health. Of course, Jessica Bunting here, the director, research to practice with CPWR, and obviously NABTU as well. So thank you. You guys are all working together on the same goal, which is trying to protect our folks right out working in the heat. So thank you for doing this. If you wanted to reach me, any questions outside of this, there's my email. It'll be at the end of this presentation also. So it all starts with a good plan, of course, like most things. We're located in California, as I said. Therefore, we follow Cal OSHA guidelines for site-specific heat illness prevention plans. We're required to have a heat illness prevention plan for now indoor as of last summer and outdoor. They have a great resource as far as those guidelines. We're looking right now at what FedOSHA's just started the process. Some of the other states have their own plans also, depending on where you're at. I encourage you to go look at those resources if you haven't. You got to start with a plan, and they give you some guidelines to get you there to start thinking about the things you may need to do. The biggest one, Ken was just talking about also, education and training. You have got to educate your supervisors. The field supervision is your first line of defense. They're the ones that are responsible for their crews out in the field, and they need to be up to speed on what we're going to do based on our plan to protect our workers. So you need to train them. They need to be confident and feel like they know what the plan is. You got to train them often, ensure that they have the tools to effectively implement your plan. Very important. You might have a plan, but if you don't have the tools to implement it, the plan's not going to go very far, right? So, and I'm going to go fairly quick here because I always end up putting something together that takes much longer than the time I'm allotted. So if I'm going too fast, let me know. Next, of course, we look at, you got to educate your crews. Your workers must also know how to take care of themselves, how to prepare for each work day, what resources do they have at work. They need to know that. How to get help or report concerns. What are the signs and symptoms of heat illness? Must be looking out for each other. And that really is a cultural thing with your company, of course, that we're all looking out for each other. But if you don't educate your people working out in the field so that they know these basic things, how are they going to reach out for help? What if they're working with someone and they don't feel well? What are you going to do about it? What are they supposed to do? Do they go talk to their supervisor, right? These are, I'm presenting them as questions because this is the kind of stuff that you need to really be making sure is implemented. Evaluate the project site. I consider the next thing, this can be done before the project even starts, pre-planning. This can be once you're boots on the ground on your project. What time of the year will the project be active? Are you starting it in January and you're not too worried about heat illness, but you still need to plan for it? What is typical weather for those times of the year based on where you're at? And start identifying challenges for the type of work. What are the tasks you're going to be doing? Site conditions. At some point, is it going to be closed in? And then you're going to be dealing with indoor heat illness. So those are just some basic things, right? Making sure you're really evaluating the project that you're working on and what those challenges are so that you can start addressing them. Now what? How do I tackle these to protect my workers, right? Okay, you identify a bunch of stuff. Now what are you going to do about it? Well, for safety professionals, we always go to the hierarchy of controls. And if you're a safety guy, I'm sorry, I hate to show this to you again, but I want to make sure people that don't have a lot of safety know what we're talking about and why we use this. We use this because we try to identify the ways which we can go ahead and deal with hazards that we find on the job site. So the hazards that we're talking about today, of course, heat illness. So what I'm going to do here is I went down our hierarchy of controls to really give you some examples of what we mean by this. So elimination, physically remove the hazard; substitution, replace the hazard; engineering controls, isolate workers from the hazard; administrative controls, can we change the way we work? And the last one, which we consider less effective, is PPE, personal protective equipment. We only go to PPE after we've looked at all of these and we've tried to change the way we're working and what we can come up with. So that's a quick explanation there of the hierarchy controls. And if we start applying those, number one, can we eliminate the exposure to heat entirely? Can we substitute with a safer alternative? Can we engineer out some of those controls? Do we have administrative controls in place, or can we put some in there? And I'm repeating myself a little bit here, but just so that we're clear. And then finally, PPE. Can we find some good PPE gear that will also help in our mission to protect our folks in high heat? If we start with elimination, when feasible, reschedule strenuous work for cooler times of the day. And Ken was talking about that earlier. You look at the tasks for the day. If you got a bunch of heavy lifting, you got you're digging, you're trenching, things that are very strenuous work. Get started early on those when it's cooler, or maybe you can do them even later in the day. Can the start time be earlier in the morning, or a shift that starts in the evening where you're avoiding the hottest parts of the day? If a heat wave is in the forecast, can that work be rescheduled for next week, possibly? A lot of times it can't, but if we don't think it through and maybe there is a possibility for that, then that might help solve a lot of problems. Scheduling is always a problem on construction sites. So I understand those challenges as well. Substitution. Is there mechanical means to reduce the amount of strenuous manual labor? We look at this a lot. Just lifting, not only for heat illness, but for your backs and lots of other things. But when we're talking heat illness, let's make it easier for our workers to get the work done. So it's less strenuous, so we have less effect from that heat. For example, using carts, forklifts, other equipment to help move materials around the project. Lots of projects involve moving materials around all the time. Can some of the strenuous tasks be performed indoor? Where is a cooler environment? Sometimes you set up little prefab areas or assembly areas. Is there an opportunity to do that inside, out of the sun, or to put up tents? We'll talk about that a little more. But using carts, forklifts, dollies, anything you can to use mechanical means so it's less strenuous work is always a positive. Then we go to engineering controls. Shade structures, tents, or canopies. We need shade. If we can get out of the sun, not only for breaks, but if we can get the work that we're trying to perform, those tasks, and have shade, you are eliminating a big portion of the problems with heat illness, right? I mean, there's humidity, there's dry heat, there's all different types of heat, but shade provided is a huge help. This over here, these are shade structures. This is actually from one of our projects. We do one of our groups, renewable energy. We do large scale utility solar projects in California up in the high desert. And they carry these shade structures around with the crews. They carry it, they have a little trailer hitch, and we carry them around with these UTVs wherever they're working. So if they need a break, they can hop under there, get in the shade. They take their breaks and lunch under those. They're mobile. They go with the crews. Of course, easy ups. You see these all over the place. They're fairly inexpensive. They can be deployed fast. You can set multiple in a row together. They're very easy to get shade for a guy that's working in this example. Also for breaks, get people out of the sun. We have also built similar structures like this. It is a gigantic tent, essentially. We've had last year on one of our big solar projects, we built some of these and actually had a conditioned space inside, air conditioning, where we were performing prefab work, building things that were going to be installed on the job site. Cost is a little more, obviously, but if you got a big operation or you're going to be there for months all through the summer, it's something really to consider, even with the high cost, to get your folks in some conditioned space in the shade to perform strenuous work. Of course, fans. Here's a porta-cool. This is similar to, I don't know if you guys remember swamp coolers. That might be a little old, but swamp coolers are something in different parts of the states when you didn't have air conditioning, right? You have water that goes through this system and blows air over that water and gives a cool feeling, a little bit of mist, and actually does reduce the temperature, not only just how it feels for the individual. We use big fans like these, drum fans, to circulate air in our commercial industrial projects where you have multiple floors and no windows open. Seems like all the new buildings now, there's not a lot of operable windows. So how are we going to get fresh air in there when HVAC is not going to be turned on until the project's finished? We try to get partnership with other trades and the general contractor. If we can get these big fans placed on each floor, open doors, get fresh air coming in the stairwells and circulate that, it does a lot to help the folks working on those floors. And especially when you've got a lot of different trades working those floors, you get drywall, now it becomes humid. And so there's just a lot of challenges on some of our new buildings, multi-floor buildings, and we've got to get airflow, and this really helps. Let's keep going through this. We've also used mini personal fans. This is an example of a Milwaukee one. We use Milwaukee tools, and they have a cool little fan. It's about a 7-inch fan, battery powered. We're in electrical rooms and small rooms where it gets really hot with the equipment in those rooms, and these really help to get some airflow. Also, we're electricians. We do certain types of testing and troubleshooting where we have to wear arc flash suits. And you can imagine wearing a big, thick cotton suit, having to have a hood on. These have fans in the back that blow air into the hood to cool them off. Also, we get this equipment where this can open up and you can get some fresh air as well. So just some of the solutions that we use trying to keep people cool. It's a challenge every day. Let's go to administrative controls. The biggest one, right? Develop your heat illness prevention plan and implement it. If you don't have a plan, I highly encourage you get a plan together, even if it's not required for your state. It's coming up here soon with the feds anyways. Are you acclimating your workers? This is a huge one. If you have new people come into your projects, they may have been working indoors in air-conditioned space. We got a lot of workers out on our solar sites in Group 2 that are new to that type of work. They haven't been working outside, and now they are, and it's 105 degrees or hotter. you've got to acclimate your workers. And that is part of your plan, that you got to identify what you're doing. Typically, you got to acclimate for 14 days. That's the guidelines. How are you going to do that? There's quite a few different ways to do that. We like to identify them with either hard hat stickers. I'll show you some shades, some kind of sunshades we use. We put a date on there when they were hired so we can keep an eye on those people. They may need extra breaks. They may need some help as they're trying to get used to that heat. And you want to do that over a 14-day period and make sure that they're acclimated by the time that 14 days is up. Are you checking on your workers throughout the day? We do a lot of checks with supervision and safety crews on our big jobs, especially with the folks getting acclimated, but also just with all of the workers on the job site. You never know what they did the day before. Are they hydrated before they get to work and that type of thing? You've got to be checking on your people. Talk again about performing most strenuous work in cooler parts of the day, mandating extra breaks for rest in the shade and hydrating. Not just saying, hey, you can whenever you want, but if it's a hot day and it's getting up into the high 90s, you really should start thinking about with your supervision saying, hey, you should take a break. You guys have been at it for a couple of hours. Some of that's going to be mandatory with the feds, it looks like, but it's just a good idea. You get people that don't want to take breaks. Oh, I just got to get my work done. And folks like that mean well, but they may fall out because they're being stubborn and they don't realize they do need to take a little break. So that's important. Monitoring weather forecasts and temps throughout the day. That should be something supervision is doing for that job site, checking the weather forecasts, preparing for the day, making sure they got enough water, training supervisors and workers to recognize signs and symptoms before they progress to dangerous levels, which we mentioned before. Gotta train folks. They gotta understand what they're looking for. So just a couple images. Obviously our heat illness prevention plan cover sheet. This is the National Weather Service. You can go there and get forecasts for a week or even 2. And you can check every day and you can figure out where you're at in the country and what it's going to look like for the next week so you can prepare and be ready for very hot weather. This is an example. One of our projects, we put these visors on their hard hat. It's a big shade. It has a neck shade as well. We put on the date that they are hired so that we can keep a track for them over the next couple of weeks and make sure that they're doing okay and they're getting used to working in the heat. This is just another example. This is our safety helmet, and we're getting stuff from the manufacturer of the safety helmet. These are like the cooling towels, but it's an insert for the hard hat. You get it wet and it has a cooling effect right on top of your melon, and it really does work and helps with the symptoms, helps keep them cooled off. Some other things we do obviously is we provide ice with our water. So on these big projects where we've got 400 or 500 people, we get a lot of ice and a lot of water. But this keeping the water cool, it does not have to be ice water according to our standards with Cal OSHA. It does have to be cooler than the ambient temperature, but this helps a lot. We have other administrative controls. We put these in all of the porta potties for our job sites and the bathrooms. Are you hydrated? It's a urine color chart. May sound kind of funny, but that's part of education so that they know if the color of their urine is down here, they are severely dehydrated already. And they need to drink more water. Something else we do, we give out these Squincher. I don't know if you heard this brand. There's some other brands out there, but Squincher makes these tiny little packets. This is a pack of 20. They're different flavors, but it's electrolytes. So you just dump it in your, the water bottles that we provide and how we provide water is in just your typical 16.9 ounce water bottles that you buy, big cases at Costco and such. What this does, it gives you a little bit of electrolytes as you're sweating profusely. It also makes you drink more water. It has a little bit of flavor, not much. It's not full of a bunch of weird chemicals. It does have some dyes, so we're looking at another one that doesn't have dyes, but this is just an example. We've even used these squincher pops where it's like a little popsicle. It has electrolytes in it. We'll keep them in the freezer and hand them out on really hot days. So this is something I highly encourage because it, in the end, just gets people to drink more water because water is boring and people don't want to drink it. So then they're drinking soda or whatever, and you want to keep them away from that kind of stuff. So here's an example of one of our projects. We get a lot of ice delivered on a weekly basis, usually a couple times a week. This looks like out in front of, one of the grocery stores, but when we have hundreds of people, we need to make sure we have the appropriate amount for those employees. Here we go. This you can see, I'm sorry these pictures didn't come out very well, but chill zone number 14. This is something we use on our large utility grade solar projects as well because they could be 5 miles long by 2 miles wide and it's a big area. And if we see or supervision of these crews calls in and says they got someone, we call it falling out, right, from heat illness, they're not doing well, we want to get them as quickly as we can into air conditioning and get them cooled off. And that is very key to prevent heat stroke and advanced stages of heat illness, which can lead to death. And it's if anyone's ever experienced how quickly that can happen, it can happen very quickly. If the core temperature is not brought down in a matter of about 10 minutes and they are already in the advanced stages, you're looking at they need to go straight to the ER. So what we do to prevent that is we put these trailers around the job site. Inside, this is a picture of inside. It's insulated. We have some benches and it's got an air conditioning unit, which you can see here. And we start up that generator and get it going. We have other methods as well, but this is just to get them immediately into a cool area. Of course, our work trucks have air conditioning, our vans that help take folks out to a specific spot in the project also have air conditioning. So we have multiple ways to tackle that to get people cooled off immediately if they're starting to have symptoms that are progressing. So that's an example of that. And the last on our hierarchy of controls, of course, is personal protective equipment, PPE. This is real basic. One of the best things to start with there is moisture wicking and breathable clothing in light colors. And this is something that you can have a discussion with your employees. We don't provide, obviously, them pants and a shirt to wear, but getting them to understand if they can find some of those types of garments, it's going to be much better for them to sweat and for that to dry quickly and it breathing so that they can get their skin cooled down quicker. I got a couple of examples of pictures of that I'll show you. Cooling towels, neck gaiters, wide brims on hard hats, or if it's you don't have to wear hard hats, just wide brim hats if you're outdoors. Keep that sun off your face, keep it off of your neck. The cooling towels work really well. You get those wet, you put them around your neck, and they really have a big effect on how you feel and how your body's doing, works together. Sunscreen is something that they should be bringing to work. Occasionally we have some on site if someone's asking for it, but getting severe sunburn just increases the effects of heat illness. So you really want to prevent that and talk to your folks about wearing appropriate sunscreen. We have ice packs and cooling vests for advanced symptoms. I'll get some pictures here to show you. Well, here's some garments first. This is just a typical breathable, lightweight work shirt. If you guys are wearing vests, sometimes we go to this because this breathes better. Long sleeve is always better, covering your skin a little more. Work pants, these are an example of some work pants that breathe. They're not made of cotton, they're made of some other materials that allow you to sweat and breathe and they dry quickly. Here's an example of neck towel. Of course, this is me in my backyard because I needed to take a picture of one. But these, you just reuse them. You keep getting them wet. As they start to dry out, you get them a little wet again and they reactivate. We also have these here. These are made of the same similar material. It's cooling. You can get this wet and it keeps that moisture on there and gives a very nice cooling effect to the employees. Here's a picture again of that sunshade for hard hats. It's got a big, you can see how far it goes over, and with the neck shade, these really help keep the sun off of your face and off of your neck. Here's another example of a wide brim with a neck shade. We use lots of that stuff out in the field. This is an ice vest that we use. I highly recommend these. You might only have some smaller crews, but if somebody goes into some stages of heat illness, you need to get their core body temperature down quickly. And so we keep these in the freezer on our big projects and even on some of our smaller projects. It's just a vest, but inside are these ice packs that you keep in the freezer. And so you put all these ice packs in the front and on the back and the sides. They put that on and it's right up against their bodies, and it really cools their core temperature down quickly, and it's a great method to use. So I went through that quick. I hope I didn't take too much time. I really appreciate everyone's time coming. I know if you're on this, you're looking to protect your employees, and that's the goal for everyone. So questions or comments, there's my email again, and I'll hand it over to Chris.
I was gonna just jump in and hand it over to Aaron. Thank you so much, Shane. Aaron, you're up.
Yeah, thanks. Shane did a great job of explaining pretty much everything that should be done. But just a little introduction about myself. I was a millwright for quite a few years, working in the glass industry. I've worked in safety role, work project manager role. Now I'm a owner, president of NMC companies. And what we do is we do refractory installation and glass melting facilities. So they manufacture glass. So you can imagine it's a hot environment, not necessarily outside, it's inside, working on furnaces that are 2,700 degrees. So got a lot of employees that are weighed down with heavy PPE to insulate them from the heat. So some of these controls work for us. Some are a little bit different. The ice vests, we do utilize those for guys cooling out. One of the big things for us, though, we stress extra breaks, especially when they're doing hot repairs, hot work. So much so that they may work 15 minutes, come out for 15, 20 minutes, go back, work for 15 minutes. The bottled water is a huge one for us. Always have coolers full of ice and water. Project we're on right now has a couple hundred employees. We have a 200-pound a day ice maker that just cranks out ice for icing down bottled water. Provide the squinchers, electrolyte powder. That's a great tool. We also have safety professionals that roam the site, and they're on the lookout for these employees that look stressed. And they carry squincher packets with them and can get them off to the side. Each trade, we provide air-conditioned break areas for them, so they each have a trailer with a fridge with popsicles inside. The squincher popsicle is also a great tool, but more so from a just say from an owner's perspective, when you can control or take control of the employee's exposure to heat and heat stress, you get more productivity out of them. So some people may look at it as a huge expense, providing freezers and refrigerators and water and popsicles and all this stuff, cooling rags, and basically anything the employees ask for, we try to get them related to heat, fresh fruits, anything that they need. But you get more compliance with other PPE use. So guys are wearing their harnesses, guys are wearing their insulated clothing, they're wearing their hard hats. You get better compliance, so you get less exposure in that aspect, along with less exposure to heat-related illnesses. and you also get more production because you keep a happy workforce. So I won't go through the whole list of everything, but same thing with the portable coolers. Those things are a lifesaver, especially indoors. Evaporative coolers, big barrel fans. We have 7 of them on this job site right now, with 4 spares, I think, in a Connex. Yeah, so the moving air, keeping guys cool, plenty of breaks, air conditioned break areas, all of that stuff. The other thing is, which is hard to do with construction workers sometimes, is encourage hydration after hours and limit alcohol use, because alcohol use, it causes dehydration. And so if you can promote those things and try to get people to do a little extra hydration, less the alcohol after hours, you get a little better protection from the heat during the work times. So I think that's it for me, unless anybody has any questions.
Great, Aaron. Thank you so much. And the information shared so far has been really good. And I wanted to go ahead and jump into some questions we got beforehand, as well as a few things that have come in during today's question. I'm just like reading more right now. The really good questions. One of the questions that came in beforehand was, how big a problem is this? Like, how many workers die each year related to heat related illnesses? And Gavin, did you want to respond to that?
Sure. I'd be happy to respond to that. I mean, one thing I would say is that we have, I think Chris mentioned at the beginning, there's a data bulletin that we will be publishing in August, coming up in a couple of weeks, I believe, or within that time frame. And there's going to be detailed information there. But when you look at all industries and you look at the census of fatal occupational injuries through the Bureau of Labor Statistics, or the Department of Labor, that's the most authoritative source of counts of different types of deaths among workers in this country. And, on the upper end, you have among all industries, like 50 to 60 workers who succumb to heat-related illnesses per year. And, it varies, that's kind of on the higher end from year to year within the last decade or so. And construction typically accounts for over 1/3 of those deaths that occur each year. And despite representing only about 6 to 7% of the entire labor force. So a disproportionate share of the deaths. Another thing that I would note is that, these figures are maintained by the Department of Labor, but through OSHA and through this rulemaking process, which was referenced, they acknowledge that underreporting of heat-related injuries and illnesses is a major problem, widely recognized problem, because it's a very difficult thing to track. In the case if you have a lone worker, the way things are recorded on kind of coroner's reports and other ways that this gets coded, that we know that we're missing a lot of deaths that occur. And in the state of Florida, published towards the end of last year, there was an investigative report done by the Tampa Bay Times, and they looked at the official statistics for Florida and found that for the heat-related deaths, they were missing half of what they found through doing this kind of more in-depth investigative reporting, where they were, looking at hospital admissions records and things like that. So we know that we're missing a lot of deaths. And there's also, I think, to consider, there's things like falls, falling off of buildings or from different types of structures where heat can contribute to that. And there's a lot more research that's emerging on heat contributing to the risk of things like acute injuries, other kind of more chronic health effects. So I just want to point that out, because it's a more narrow way to look at it when you think of just, people who die from heat stroke, which is, as one of the speakers mentioned, it's a really, bad way to go. And, I would hope that nobody would have to suffer that at work, but it's an even bigger problem when you kind of look at the larger impacts of heat on health and injury risk.
Thank you, Gavin. I'm looking through some of the questions we got beforehand, and it looks like a lot were for Shane and Aaron, and you guys answered them during your presentation. So I was going to skip ahead, and there's one about direct reading instruments. Just any experience folks have with direct reading instruments, or types of devices that monitor heat stress or hydration levels, personal GPS health monitoring devices, or anything like wearables that folks have experience with, have understanding of, have concerns about. So I wanted to jump first to Ken for responsibility or to respond to that.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Wearables are becoming a big thing lately, from smartwatches to actual, wristbands that you could put on. They even got some clothing that are out there, but there's really reading the older technologies reading skin temperature. So it wasn't really giving accurate readings, but there is newer equipment out there that's given physiological readings now. Actually, you're wearing it on your ear. And it's reading it different for your body temperature, and also it can give a pretty good alert to the person, or even to their management or leadership. But I just want to do a word of caution here, because as this new technology comes out, how are we using that data? Are we using it to protect the workers? Or are we using it for something negative? There should be a user consent if they're going to wear a wearable, and we're going to keep data from that person that's wearing that wearable, for one. And then there's federal and state laws that we have to look out for. I think the technology is great, but it's how we use that data that I think is important. And a lot of times we come out with great stuff, but we forget the point that how are we using the data that comes with it. Just my comment on that, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. And Erin, did you want to talk a little bit about the use of instruments or employee monitoring to, ensure that they're not succumbing to heat illness?
So we don't do anything as far as direct employee monitoring, other than we do. I'm sorry, direct physical exam was a question that I had originally responded to.
Oh,
And the
okay.
only medical type exams that we do would be like regarding respirator exams. And so the medical evaluation, and that takes into consideration the conditions that they're working in. So you may be answering questions about the types of heat that you're working in order to wear this respirator. So some employees may be excluded from not necessarily wearing a respirator, but wearing a respirator while working in those heat conditions.
Great. Oh, no, I appreciate that. Next one I'm going to throw at Shannon. How does a lone worker prevent heat stress and heat related injuries? Do you recommend any programs or applications? Shannon? Shannon, we can't hear you.
Hello.
There you are. Go ahead.
Hello. Yes. So what we do as for the laborers, we have a program called SunSense, and in the SunSense program, we offer, like the lip balm, sunscreen lotion, the neck flaps, cooling towels, and also sunscreen protection. Our local, the local that I'm out of in Washington, D.C., Local 11, we offer tumblers. We offer, protective clothing, just things in that nature, just to, to keep the guys cool out in the site. Shane, he did a great job with his presentation. I mean, he pretty much said everything that we offer, as in, keeping it cool. So we also have the SunSense program, like I said, and then also we have what we call the Lodge program, Labor's On Time Safe, and the Lodge program also offer, like I said, tumblers, shirts, just pretty much anything to keep the guys cool out on the job site.
Cool. And did you have any views on the lone worker when somebody has to work alone issue?
Yeah, I mean, so when I get out on a job site, do a job site visit, and there's someone that's working alone, and it's hard to, try to educate them on, if you're starting to feel that you start to feel unnormal, just make sure you let someone know that you're down there by yourself and you're not feeling as well. Take a break, normal breaks, stay hydrated, just make sure if you're not feeling well, please let someone know.
Great. Thanks. And Shane, did you have anything to add to that one?
Yeah, no problem. I can add to that. Just from our experience, the lone worker scenario is very challenging for heat illness and really any high hazard work that you're doing. An example for us is we have electricians that perform different types of maintenance, trouble calls, and they are out there by themselves with their truck and their tools performing electrical work. And so it's something that we are concerned about, and we've been looking at. Those challenges really can be looked at with a bunch of new apps that have come out. There's quite a few lone worker apps. There's devices, wearable devices that have panic buttons that you can wear. In case you're in trouble, they'll track the employee where he is. If he hasn't moved for so many minutes, meaning maybe he's down and in trouble. Some of those apps will even tell you if he took a fall. The ones, the biometric stuff that was mentioned earlier, there's a lot of challenges to the biometric stuff, right? Where it's actually tracking your health data. There are some newer devices that you can wear, other like, of course, an Apple phone. They're very, very expensive is one problem, and that's a challenge. Also, just tracking someone's health data is a HIPAA scenario. So there's a lot of hurdles of trying to use some of the cooler biometric stuff. I think it's going to come a long ways. Obviously, it'll become more affordable, hopefully, and more reliable. There's lots of other maintenance issues, calibrations. Someone in construction work, is banging it against. I mean, if you're not wearing a G-Shock watch, it's not going to last. And there's just some challenges with it. I think for lone workers, I always go back to education. They've got to be educated. They've got to be the right person. I strongly feel that you have to have the right people in those types of positions. Someone that is highly detail oriented, very responsible, and on and on and on, that you feel confident. You give them the training. They're able to assess the job site, assess the weather conditions, do all that stuff by themselves, and hopefully not put themselves in a position of harm. And then have a supervisor check in with them a couple times a day, know where they're at specifically, what type of work are they doing. Maybe that lone worker, because of the hazardous work, the heat conditions in a building, whatever it may be, then they might need a helper for the day. So I really think it's, kind of going through, like we talked about, there needs to be some administrative controls, maybe some engineering controls, and that type of stuff has to happen on a daily basis of where they're working, right? We do hazard analysis. We call it an AHA, activity hazard analysis. There's JSAs, JHAs. Those all documents and education all help to set them up for success right at the beginning if we follow all that stuff. So that's I guess probably what I'd say about that.
I appreciate that. And, thinking about the responses and the discussion that's going on around wearables and hydration monitoring devices and things like that, that as one example of, say, an administrative control, it doesn't eliminate the hazard, but it may help manage it, even though there are these privacy concerns that have to be dealt with. So
Yeah.
with that, I'm going to wrap up. We didn't get to near enough questions, but had a really, really wonderful conversation. And I wanted to thank all of you, Shannon, Ken, Shane, and Aaron, and of course, Gavin and Jessica from our team and our translators. This will be available. It'll be sent out to everyone who registered, and really appreciate your time and really appreciate you giving up your own time to join us and help educate folks on today's webinar. Stay tuned. The heat campaign is underway and it's not going anywhere. So check back and use the resources that are available for free. And I really hope everyone has a good afternoon and a safe afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.